my water just broke. I felt like things really intensified.
She was right there and she was coming.
It was an amazing feeling.
I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. I could feel her head.
We heard her cry. We were squeezing hands and she was screaming.
I'm Bryn Hunt Palmer, and you're listening to The Birth Hour. This podcast is designed as a safe place to come together and share childbirth stories. Stick around and join us to hear informative and empowering birth journeys from all over the world. If you're new to the Birth Hour, you may not know that we have an online childbirth course that is evidence-based. It includes 12 modules that take you from your final weeks of pregnancy through obviously preparing for birth and then postpartum and feeding your baby as well. And with enrollment in that course, which is called Know Your Options, you'll get free access to our other course called Beyond the First Latch, where we talk all about pumping, feeding baby, storing milk, going back to paid work if that's part of your plan, all of those things as well. Okay, so if you go to thebirthhour.com/course, you can see everything laid out in the course, module by module, as well as an FAQ section, which will hopefully answer some of your questions if you have any, things like how to get it covered by an FSA account and things like that. It also talks about the bonuses that come with the course, including bi-monthly Zoom calls and access to our private Facebook group. So again, that's thebirthhour.com/course. And you can use the coupon code 100OFF for $100 off enrollment as a podcast listener. We would also love to welcome you into our listener supporter group via Patreon. That's at patreon.com/birthhour. And by becoming a Patreon supporter, you get access to all of our archived episodes. This podcast launched in 2015, so we have over 800 episodes in the archives that are not in the main podcast feed, so you can get your fill of birth stories. And you'll also get access to our private Facebook group for Patreon members, which is a great place to honestly just to search the past posts to get answers to questions, but then of course to ask new questions, find community. It's a really, really great supportive group of people. So I highly recommend joining that. We would love to have you there. We also do monthly Zoom calls with our Patreon supporters, and you get an opportunity to enter your birth story via a different submission form than everyone else uses, and we choose 2 Patreon members each month to share their birth stories. So that is again at patreon.com/birthhour. Today's birth story guest is Traci, and she has a hospital birth to share with us, and she's going to talk about her experience with preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome. Today's episode is brought to you by Air Doctor. Americans spend an average of 90% of their time indoors, but did you know that indoor air can be up to 100 times more polluted than outdoor air? You can breathe easy with Air Doctor, the award-winning air purifier that eliminates 99.99% of dangerous contaminants like allergens, viruses, smoke, gases, mold spores, and more. Air Doctor was voted Best Air Purifier by Newsweek, so it's no surprise that 98% of Air Doctor customers agree their home's air feels cleaner, safer, and healthier. Unlike other purifiers, Air Doctor captures invisible particles 100 times smaller than standard HEPA filters. We have air purifiers in our bedroom as well as the kids' bedrooms, and everyone has been sleeping better. I love how quiet the Air Doctor is. It's like the perfect amount of white noise. I would absolutely splurge on this for a nursery for baby. Like, get the cheap crib from IKEA and put your money towards this so that your baby has clean air in their nursery. We also have one in our living room, and I've noticed a huge difference after cooking and things like that. It just really clears the room really quickly. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use the promo code BIRTHHOUR to get up to $300 off today. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee plus a 3-year warranty, which is an $84 value for free. You can get this exclusive podcast-only offer now at airdoctorpro.com, airdoctorpro.com, using the promo code BIRTHHOUR. Today's episode is sponsored by KiwiCo. I remember getting my first science kit as a gift when I was a kid, and how much fun it was to have a gift that constantly brought new discoveries versus just sitting on a shelf. KiwiCo crates are such a great holiday gift because they are hands-on and actually keep my kids engaged. As a mom, you're probably familiar with family members asking for gift ideas, and it's so easy when I can just point them to KiwiCo. It takes the guesswork out, and since I have 3 kids, the grandparents can choose from KiwiCo's 8 crate lines with unique topics like science, engineering, and art, and really find something special and tailored to each child. Our youngest just graduated from the koala crate to the kiwi crate, and he looks forward to the arrival of his crate each month so much. His crate incorporates science and art, and there's always like a learning project as well as some kind of art component to it. Our middle kiddo gets the Tinker crate, which is always a really cool hands-on experiment involving engineering. Last month, he made his own lava lamp, and he can't stop talking about it. And our oldest does the Doodle crate, which is all art projects, like making your own pottery or learning to sew or making your own journals. She really loves them, and I see her going back to them over and over again. My favorite aspect of all the different crates is that kids can build and play over and over again, so it's not a single-use present. I actually always keep a few extra KiwiCo crates on hand for last-minute birthday party gifts as well. So tinker, create, and celebrate this holiday with KiwiCo. Get up to 50% off your first crate at kiwico.com using the promo code BIRTHHOUR. That's up to 50% off your first crate at kiwico.com, promo code BIRTHHOUR. Hi, Traci. Welcome to the Birth Hour. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm such a fan. I think it's so cool what you're doing. I didn't know I was as obsessed with other people's birth stories until I found you.
Well, thank you. So I'm excited to add yours to the catalog of stories. But before we get to that, can you tell listeners a little bit about you and your family?
Yeah, my name's Traci Stumpf. I'm a television host. I live in Los Angeles. I have 2 kids who are crazy. My daughter's 5. My son is almost 3. And I don't think anything can prepare you for 2.5-year-old boy energy.
Okay, so we're going to focus on your first birth in this episode. So why don't you start with wherever you're comfortable as far as finding out you're pregnant, pregnancy.
Yeah, I was 33 years old when I got pregnant and had my daughter. I had her April 28th, 2020. So that was like 3.5 weeks into the global health pandemic. Do you remember? Does everybody remember that?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I remember like having babies that month was like, I just had so much compassion for all of the people in our community going through that because there were so many unknowns and crazy decisions being made.
So many unknowns. And I think collectively, we haven't like processed what happened to us as a nation, as a world, like I think we're still so on edge from that experience. And I think the people who had kids in that period of time went through like a different level of trauma, essentially, because like there's already so many unknowns in birth, postpartum, having a baby. And then to add in this, like, if you hug your grandma, you're going to kill her vibe was just so heavy,
Yeah.
So the beginning part of my pregnancy was light and breezy and it was textbook and perfect. And I took a lot of pride in my health and the way I supported myself in pregnancy and the way I supported my baby. And I don't want to say I was arrogant about it, but I definitely felt a shield of protection by not getting my hair done, not getting my nails done, not pumping my own gas, eating everything organic. And I really felt like that was some sort of shield for me and everything was going to be okay. And I was just so wrong. So I went into labor at 39 weeks, 5 days, which is like great for your first pregnancy.
Yeah.
And my doctor told me to labor at home for as long as possible because there was so many unknowns at the hospital. And it was the height of ventilators. Like there was a shortage of ventilators. Do you remember that anxiety?
Oh, yeah.
And there was a shortage of hospital beds. It was when you would watch the news and you would see all of the bodies outside of the hospitals in New York. So my doctor was just like, you have to stay at home as long as possible. Like we've done a good job at this particular hospital in Los Angeles of not flooding the labor and delivery. So it shouldn't be a big deal, but just to play it safe, stay home as long as possible. And originally they were telling me that my husband couldn't be in the room because of germs and COVID and all of that stuff. And luckily, at the end of April or mid-April, they lifted it. So we were like the second wave of people that were allowed to have a support person, which was so nice. I could never imagine giving birth by myself.
Yeah, no, that was like people very quickly were like, that's inhumane and kind of turned it around. But unfortunately, some people fell into that category.
Yeah, a lot of people. And I remember having so much compassion for those people because now their partners will never know how brutal it really is. You know, like unless you're there, you don't know how crazy birth is.
Yeah.
A lot of support people lost that privilege, which was such a tragedy in and of itself. So I labored at home for I went into labor at 9 a.m. and I got to the hospital at midnight the next, that day. So a while, got to the hospital. There was a bed for me, which was so nice. Got my epidural. And it was also in the time frame where the hospital staff was so fried. And looking back, I have so much empathy for these people because they were just non-stop. The people who were on the maternal ward were also helping in the ICU, were also helping in the ER. They were all over the place and they were just stretched so thin. So I get to the hospital and the staff is already just burnt out, and you can feel that heaviness in the air and you can feel the sadness and you can feel the gravity of this global health pandemic on a floor of the hospital that should be so light and should be so joyous and new life and fresh. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was just so heavy.
Yeah.
And I get to my room and I get the epidural within a couple minutes, which God bless. And I think in my mind, I was I'm going to try really hard not to do this. And the minute I got there, I was I think I'm just going to do this. And I'm somewhat grateful I did. And I got the epidural and I got to rest for a little while. And I remember as it was time for me to push, there was a shift change. So the doctors and the nurses shift was switching over. So we got a new fresh batch of people, which anybody listening knows that you kind of fall in love with the people who take care of you when you're going through all of this. And to have a shift change right while you're at the peak of it all is very sad. And I remember being very sad that my nurses that had been with me for the past 9-10 hours were leaving. And this was a new group of people and it was time to push. And I remember it took me 4.5 hours of pushing with my daughter and it was awful. And as I was pushing on hour 3.5, I was I can't feel anything. I told them that from the beginning that my legs were so numb, I couldn't feel anything. And the doctors kind of brushed it off. Not the doctors, the nurses brushed it off. And my resident OB there was kind of brushed it off. And everybody was just kind of it's okay. It's your first baby. It takes a while. And I was so adamant that I couldn't feel anything, but I felt it was just kind of normal that I couldn't feel anything. And my husband on hour 4, he was the epidural, could it still be on? Could that be why she can't feel anything? And my understanding, and this is this could be wrong information, but this is what I was told. An epidural, when you're pushing, should be at a level 4, metaphorically. Mine was at a 12. So I was so numb. Every part of my body was just limp and I couldn't feel anything. And they were oh, we failed you. And they turned it down and I was able to push more because I was able to feel things. And then she got stuck. My daughter got stuck. And I remember the doctor being if you don't push her out, we're going to have to vacuum her out. And if we can't vacuum her out, you have to get a C-section. And there's something about the competitive nature in my soul that was I will not lose this. You don't make me run a 4.5 hour marathon just to carry me out the last chunk of time. So I mustered all that I had and I did it and I pushed her out. And I remember as I was pushing her out, the nurse was her blood pressure is so high. And I remember just thinking yeah, guys, this is the hardest workout I've ever done in my entire life. Of course, my blood pressure is high. And the doctor was oh my God, wow, that's really high. And they delivered my daughter and it was beautiful and it was fine. And as I was delivering my placenta, the doctor said, we're going to take this for testing. I'm sure it's fine, but we're just going to take this for testing. And I remember her looking at one of the nurses and being get this to the lab immediately. We can't fail her again. And I was just oh my God.
She said that out loud?
Yeah, she said that out loud to the nurse.
Wow.
And I was just okay, so they've already messed up. And again, they must have been so tired. They've just been on for a month at this point, doing work that they don't usually do, with all the COVID stuff. So even like at the time, I had like a lot of empathy for the situation. And so the nurse like shuffles off and I get to like be with my baby and my husband at the little golden hour. And it was like so beautiful, and like FaceTimed my mom. And I remember as I was FaceTiming my mom, I looked at my own reflection, and I have never seen my face this big. Like I looked like I had been stung by 25 bees. And I have like a pretty like slim face even through pregnancy. And I was so freaked out. And then like the little voice in my head was just like, stop being so paranoid. Like you just had a baby. This was 48 hours of labor and, 4.5 hours of you're fine. Like, of course you're puffy. And then we get to the recovery room, my husband, Lois, my daughter, and myself, and they like come rushing in and they're like, we need a blood panel from you immediately. And they take my blood, and I remember the blood comes back really fast. And then a nurse with like, again, she's probably so tired, but she had like no bedside manner. And I feel so passionately about bedside manner. I feel like if you're going to be working in any sort of care or hospitality, you have to lead with kindness. Like I have limited space for people who deliver bad news rudely. And I just remember her being like, your liver enzymes are through the roof, your blood pressure won't come down, and you have no more platelets. And I was just like, what does any of this mean? What does any of this mean? And they put me in a wheelchair and they're like, we need to get you to the ICU immediately. And so I get wheeled to the maternal ICU, which I never knew was a thing. Like there's the ICU for patients, and then there's like a whole maternal ward for critical care moms who just had babies. And I go to the maternal ICU and they're like, you have postpartum preeclampsia that's escalating into HELLPs. And as they're like delivering all this information to me, a doctor comes in and asks my husband if I have any religious preferences in case I pass away. Like what next steps does he want to take for the death of his wife?
Oh my gosh.
And I just remember him being like, do you have any like crystals? Like she likes crystals and like positive energy.
Oh my gosh.
And then they hooked me up to a magnesium drip, which prevents seizures and strokes when you're preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome. And they gave me a catheter, which I don't recommend. And I was laying there in this ICU bed. And I remember being like, okay, like, cool. Well, at least like I can be with my baby, like we've got this, we have a protocol now. I have my daughter, like, let me hold her. And they were like, oh, you can't hold her. The medication makes you very loopy and it makes you like hallucinate almost. I don't think they use those words, but like that was my experience where like everything just kind of became warped. And they're like, you can't be alone with your daughter. So every time, unless there was a nurse present in the room, she couldn't be with me, which I was just like, it's like you work so hard for something for 10 months, which by the way, it's 10 months. Everybody says it's 9 months. It's 10 months. And then you can't even have that thing. It felt that was the biggest grievance of all of this, was not being able to just like hold my new baby for the first day of her life. And so I remember like lying to the doctors. I remember just being like, I honestly don't feel anything. I asked for a cup of coffee and I got like a giant cup of coffee. And I was just like, I almost treated it as like a night of like partying in my 20s and being like, okay, I need to sober up so I can drive home. And I like drank the cup of coffee. And I remember being like, just fight this feeling of the magnesium and all these drugs they're putting in you. Just fight it so you can like get it together so you can hold your baby and like breastfeed and like do skin to skin and do all of these things that you read about on the birth blogs and you listen to, and like the happy part of all of the trauma, right? And I got robbed of that. Like they wouldn't let me do any of that. And I just remember being like, okay, just lie to them. And I did. I was just like, I feel fine. I feel great. And one nurse was like, yeah, you actually like look pretty good. Like here, and let me hold her. And I was holding her. And I remember turning to my husband and being like, did you bring like a humidifier? Cause it's like so foggy in here. Like, why is it? It felt like I was in the middle of the forest at like 4 a.m. Like that's what the room felt like. And he was like, oh yeah, maybe it's like a little foggy. It was not foggy at all. And he told the nurse, he's like, she thinks it's foggy in the room. And she came in and she like took the baby away from me. And it was awful. That to this day is like, even being told that my chance of death was high and that, all of these things were going wrong inside my body, a body that I had like worked so hard to keep so healthy for this day. Like all of that didn't even matter to me. All that mattered to me was that I couldn't hold my baby. And so they came in and they took her away from me again. And I was just laying there, just like broken, like broken from the experience of a labor or a delivery that didn't go my way. And then just like broken from my body essentially betraying me, broken from the system that I felt like had failed me. I felt broken from like physically having a baby who physically broke my body. And then I felt really betrayed by my own body. And like I worked so hard on my body mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally to have this baby the way I thought I wanted her, like I put in so much effort into my health and my wellness so nothing would go wrong. And everything went wrong. And I just remember like laying there being like, this is hell. Like this is hell. This would be hell for anybody. And I was in the ICU for 5 days and it was awful. And then, the doctors would come in and they would like every day they'd be like, okay, your liver enzymes are leveling out, and your blood pressure is stable, but your platelets haven't come back yet. So we need a couple more days. Like they always like dangle the carrot, like maybe this afternoon, maybe tomorrow. And I remember being like, what if I just like, I'll check in with my doctor because my platelets would never recover. They still haven't recovered to this day, but they made a deal with me. They were like, okay, like we'll discharge you. And then you like do a follow-up with your doctor in a couple of days. And I was elated to be getting out of there. Like just so excited to start this like next chapter with my daughter and to put this like preeclampsia HELLP syndrome behind me. And probably everybody knows, like they discharge you and then they discharge the baby. And because it was COVID, you couldn't have your pediatrician come in at this particular hospital to discharge the baby. You had to use the staff pediatrician. And so I was holding my daughter and I was so excited to just like go home and shower and try to like get back those 5 days that I had lost. And I was holding her. And listen, I don't know anything about babies. I've had 2 of them and I like still don't claim to know anything. But I was looking at her and I remember looking at her and her doing this while I was like high on drugs. And I was like, her eyes were kind of rolling back as she was falling asleep. And as the pediatrician was discharging her, I was like, hey, like I've kind of like been noticing her eyes doing this. Is that normal? And she just kind of looks at my daughter and is like, give me 1 second. And like within 2 minutes, I would say 9 doctors from the NICU and like 5 nurses came in, all white coats, lights in her face, looking at her, and, taking her pulse ox, like flipping her around, taking off her little hat, unswaddling her. And the doctor looks at me, she's like, I'm so sorry, but I've never seen this before. I think she's having seizures and we need to make sure she has brain activity. And I was just like, oh my God, like this is like as if this couldn't get any worse.
Yeah.
Now, like I just like fought death, like I feel like I just climbed out of this hole. And now they're telling me that my daughter is broken. Like something's wrong with her. And so they put her in this little glass cage and like so quickly rushed her up to the NICU. And they were like, you can shower and like, we're going to have to discharge you because you're fine. And I have never put up more of a fight when they told me they were going to discharge me. For somebody 5-10 minutes ago, I was so excited to go home. And then I was begging them to let me stay at the hospital, but begging this doctor to let me stay. And I put up such a fight. And the doctor, I don't know how I did it, but he was like, okay, fine. Like, I'll readmit you and for observation and, from all you went through, and you can stay until she's discharged. Or I remember he said, you can stay here. And if she gets discharged, you can leave when she leaves. As if there was like a chance that she was not going to come home with us. And I took a shower. My husband went up with her to the NICU, and I took a shower, and I just like lost it in the shower, just in this like tiny little hospital shower. I've never felt so powerless in my entire life. And I think like birth and postpartum and having a baby is such a relinquish of control. And I've never felt that the way I felt it in that like tiny hospital shower, like so just out of control and like bartering with every god out there, making deals, making promises. You just like, you lay it all on the line when somebody that you just met is, life is at stake. And like, I had just met my daughter, and like, I've never loved anything more than I've loved her. And I just felt like it was all going to go away. And it was awful. It was an awful feeling.
Yeah.
And then she's in the NICU with my husband, and they're just all the tests that they're running and like hooked up to all these monitors and brain scans and, oh my gosh, just finger pricks and formula and like all of the things that I didn't want for her, she got. And she was up there for, I think, maybe 2 or 3 nights under like 24-hour observation. And I would like go up to the NICU in the middle of the night and just like stay there. And they would have to escort me out of this NICU. Like, I was so persistent and I was so annoying and I was so up everybody's butt about my kid. And I can't imagine that hospital ever wants to see me again, because I was so disruptive. And I was just so, your maternal instincts kick on in such a way that you fight so hard for, again, somebody you just met. And it's just such a crazy, unexplainable feeling. And so the doctors, and again, they're all so tired, and I have a lot of empathy for that. But the doctor is scanning her brain, and her brain's totally fine. And the doctor's like, we don't see any sign of seizures. We don't see any sign of abnormal brain activity. We don't see anything. Like, she's perfectly healthy. And she looks at me, she's like, I think she might have just been dreaming. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for,
oh my gosh,
for this. And I just like lost it. I just like fell to the floor on the NICU. I was like, this is like I appreciate your apology. However, like this is crazy. Like it just felt so crazy. And I remember my husband being like, let's just get out of here. Like, let's just leave so fast. And they discharged her, and they discharged me. And I like put her, I didn't even put her in her like coming home outfit, because I was in such a rush to leave. Like, she stayed in the little NICU onesie that I still have. And I was like, get us the hell out of here. And we ran out of that hospital and got home. And like, I think my postpartum with my daughter was so emotional, but also I was so grateful. Like, every time she woke up in the middle of the night, I was like, oh, it feels like a privilege to be able to be alive and be with her. Like, for both of us to be healthy and functioning and here. I was never exhausted. I mean, I was exhausted, but I was never like annoyed about the exhaustion. I had a really there was levity. There was levity to my postpartum, which I'm so grateful for.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, I had so much gratitude for our health, and I had so much gratitude that we were here and together and not in like some, just like some sterile environment. And yeah, I mean, she turned 5 in April, and like, she's great. And like, I still like to this day, I'm just like, oh my God, it puts everything into perspective for me with her. You know, every like little annoyance, every time she's like losing her mind about whatever, I'm just like, oh, her brain's working, you know?
Oh, yeah.
There's this parallel universe where things didn't work out for us. And it's just like, I'm just so grateful we're not in that timeline, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That is a lot. It makes total sense that you were like so eager to get out of that hospital and get it home, like under normal circumstances, but under COVID. Yeah. I can just imagine like the vibes were not good to be in a hospital, especially under the circumstances that you went through.
Oh yeah. It was awful. But also like awful for me. I was there for, I don't know, 8 days, but like, can you imagine being like a doctor in that?
No. Yeah. I had so much compassion for them and for anyone who had to go to the hospital as well. It's just crazy.
Yeah, so crazy. It's so awful.
And now all those babies are starting kindergarten.
I know. I've been seeing all those memes. I'm like, oh,
yeah, totally. They get me too. And mine's in first grade, but you know.
Still, like, you still had to like do some like childcare, right?
Yeah, the childcare situation and the homeschool situation was a lot.
See, I almost feel kind of lucky that I had her when I did, all things considering, because I got to spend so much time with her.
Yeah. Yeah. There were some silver linings for sure there.
Well, silver linings, I was home with a newborn, not home with a 2-year-old. That would have been crazy.
Yeah. It was a lot. All right. Well, I know you want to share a little bit about kind of what all you have learned since you went through that. And I guess too, like, did you have preeclampsia again with your second or no?
I didn't. No. And, you know, I made a conscious decision that this experience wasn't going to rob me of my life. You know, there was a lot of like conversations with my doctor about like, do we want to do this again? Like, should we? And, you know, that statistically, it usually only happens in your first pregnancy, but there's been a lot of cases where it happens time and time again. And I was just like, I'm not going to let this like medical boogeyman rob me of my family. You know, I wanted 2 kids. I wanted her to have a friend. I have a sibling who's my best friend. I was just like, I want this for my life and for their lives. And I did it. I had another baby, and it was a completely healthy experience, start to finish. I'll tell you, I went to the hospital on a Friday, had him on a Saturday, and I checked myself out of the hospital Sunday morning at 5 a.m. They were like, technically you have to stay here for 3 days or whatever. And I was like, I'm like signing myself out. I had my own pediatrician come in. It was just such a different experience. And I was like, even if there is something wrong, I don't want to know. Like, I'll deal with it at home. It was a great experience. It was a great pregnancy. I found a lot of natural ways to deal with blood pressure issues, one being magnesium. And I wish the medical community would talk about this. And again, like, I'm not a doctor, but magnesium is a great natural way of lowering your blood pressure throughout pregnancy and postpartum. But yeah, I did it. I did it again.
Well, I'm glad it was a very different experience for you.
Yeah. And now I'm working with the Preeclampsia Foundation. This year, I'm their honorary chair for their Walk Anywhere walk. And it's just been so cool working with this foundation and learning all of these women's stories about their experience with preeclampsia and HELLPs, and how many women this actually affects, and how isolating and how sad and scary, and just how alone you feel when you go through this. So I've been raising money and raising awareness for the foundation, which supports women and babies who are experiencing this, and they fund research and help get the word out there. So it's been the light at the end of a dark tunnel.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, yeah, we'll have to link to that on the show notes. Any other resources or things you want to share?
Well, you can join my team. I'll also give you that link.
Okay.
And you can join my team to help raise money and awareness for preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome. And all the money goes to fund research, and all the money goes to help moms who have lost their babies from this, or families that have lost the mom to this condition. It's just an incredible foundation. I feel so lucky to be a part of it.
Awesome. Yeah, send us the links. And then where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Instagram, I think, at Traci, Traci, Stumpf, Stum, Mary P. Paul, F. Frank.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Traci, for sharing today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was just really walking down memory lane.
To find Traci's show notes, you can go to thebirthhour.com and just type her name in the search bar. And remember, you can use the coupon code BIRTHHOUR at kiwico.com to get started with your first Kiwi crate, or the code BIRTHHOUR at airdoctorpro.com to get started with your air filter. I will link to those from the show notes, as well as the podcast app where you're listening to this episode as well.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, head to thebirthhour.com and click Become a Member to pledge your support. And as a thank you, you'll get an invitation to join our private Facebook group and access to exclusive episodes. Your vote of confidence and support means the world to me.